Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Gut health. That is one of the topics that is most astoundingly profound this day and age when it comes to making sure that our health is strong and well, especially a day and an age when many people are worried about how well their immune system works, especially when it comes to things like today's ongoing pandemic. Our body's immune system is nearly 80% around the gut and stomach walls, and the biggest thing that most Americans and people around the world are finding themselves in short supply of are things known as enzymes. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is someone who's going to share with us how we can actually change this and actually make ourselves become more healthy and thrive. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Angela DeBille. Angela, thank you for being on the program today.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
You bet. Now let's talk about gut health. How did you come to move in this direction with your life to really help people begin to take a look at this and see what they could do? Because this can be something that can mean a big difference between a quality of life for an individual, couldn't it?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, my own story, my personal story was, I am a veteran as well as my husband. We spent some years in the military, and anybody in the military knows, like aspirin and different things they give you. They're like chewable candy. So they're throwing everything at you with regards to medicine, or so they call it. And really, it wasn't until about 18 months or so ago I was actually introduced to a company, and their mission is to teach about plant health and going back to basics. So, I know I'd been on your show previously talking about CBD and how effective that is, but really the other part of that really changed my life was introducing plant-based nutrition. So I didn't have to become a vegetarian per se, but really introducing the nutrition and the plant-based foods back into my body is what completely changed my quality of life.
I know this day and age, many people are concerned whether or not we're even going to get food to the table, because we just can't seem to get, the delivery chains going here. But let's go ahead and talk about how this all started, because there was a time, especially in America, where going to the grocery store was almost sort of a treat. And it wasn't until right around World War II or just after a lot of that really changed, didn't it? Not only our diet, but how we went about getting food.
It really did. So, and you're exactly right. The wars definitely changed things. So, not so long ago, even back when I was growing up, and I won't say how old I am, but it wasn't very long ago.
Oh, come on, shoot. Tell us how old you are.
I'm only just turning 41. But, growing up, you're exactly right. My father and my uncles and the men of the family, they went out and they hunted. And, they would be gone for 2-3 weeks, sometimes 4. And what they came back with, that was our meat for the year, most of it. We certainly had trips to the store to, supplement if we had to. But, my parents were canning foods, and we didn't have a big farm in our yard. But what we were getting from the grocery stores, we definitely preserved as long as we could by canning. So, that all changed. So we were all hunters and gatherers way back when, before any of us were alive. But then certainly the wars happened. We needed a way to get foods to our troops quicker. We didn't have, farmers that were supplying enough to, for the actual demand. So we had to start processing foods. So along came canned foods and, adding preservatives and whatnot into our food. So that kind of became the norm and the way that we fed not only our troops abroad on the battlefields, but also here at home as well. So, they were just, the troops had to be able to eat meals hot or cold. You couldn't be out in the battlefield trying to start up a fire, giving away your position. So they started with the processed. And then, somewhere around the 1990s or so, I think it was about 1994, then came GMOs and genetically modified foods. So then technology prevails, farmers are going away, and, quite honestly, few and far between anymore. And so they introduced genetically grown tomatoes and foods that we could do. And as it's evolved, now we have all kinds of fruits and vegetables and, even plant-derived, synthetic sugars, that even fish grown in in the ponds. I know we have it back home in Oregon, but they're genetically modified basically, and it's changed everything. We've become the sickest generation of people now. We are now nutrient deficient.
Now let's take a look in the past 2 decades, what particular things came on the rise as far as what we didn't really experience before in the generations that we were just talking about.
Well, for example, you mean with the genetically modified, or?
For instance, we have diabetes. Now it's like 1 in 3. I remember asking, and this was probably more than 10 years ago, why are we seeing so much of it now? And one of the suggestions was made because of the introduction of, I believe it was corn syrup, was one of the things that they talked about. But what are some of the other things that we've experienced a big rise in?
Oh, so many things. So basically, you've got autism is on the rise. You've got inflammation across the board. You're not just seeing, from injury-related things. You've got people that have chronic inflammation all throughout their body. You've got our mental disorders on the rise, anxiety, depression, even disorders such as Alzheimer's, schizophrenia. There's just so many across the board. And when I say the sickest generation, I really mean that. When you just look in the past, I would say 15, 20, 25 years, these are all changing. Growing up, and I say it wasn't that long ago, I can think of, they used to have those little allergy bracelets people would wear if they had any type of allergy. And I can think of one kid in elementary school that ever had to wear one that you were worried about. But now my own kids can't even go to school. I can't send them with a peanut butter sandwich. I can't send them with any type of lotion. I have to be careful what scented stuff I'm using because everyone seems to have an allergy out there. It's really crazy.
And that's true. I remember when I was even in grade school, allergies, you just didn't hear about stuff like that. It's funny how rare, and even, for instance, I remember when I was probably right around the 3rd grade, my mother talked about a particular story called Sunshine, which actually became a movie, and it was also based off of the song by John Denver, and apparently it was a story about a woman who had gotten cancer and then eventually dies, leaving a young daughter behind. Well, what's cancer? I mean, even in the 1970s, that was a strange thing, but now it's become a household name.
Exactly.
And that's what stranger things, would you agree with this, excuse me, seem to be like normal. And I think that's something to be alarmed about.
Absolutely. Yeah, cancer, I hate that word. And, it affects so many of us. I've got, my own family. I don't know how many cancer survivors. I lost my grandfather. My aunt's a survivor. It's become the norm, and it really is kind of sad because there's so many things we can do to try to prevent it. There's no cure. But really, going back to these basics, there's so many things we can do to our body to help our bodies fight off, all of these things. And that really kind of comes back to enzymes and why enzymes are so important in our body. That's honestly been the thing that completely has changed my body and overall health. I can't say enough about them.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about enzymes, why they're important. Where do we get them from?
Well, we get them from our foods. So all living things, plants, animals, doesn't matter, but we all have enzymes. And textbook definition will tell you that they're basically these tiny molecules within our bodies that kind of help speed up the chemical reactions. And by chemical reactions, basically I'm talking about, your digestion, the breaking down of our food just so that our body can absorb the nutrients, and metabolic, and we've got our cellular respiration, even electrical, the nerves and muscle function. Everything in our body is basically a chemical reaction. And there's millions of these per second, really, that are going on that we don't even know about, just breathing. So basically, it can be, it's basically a protein. So they're going to control all the chemical reactions happening in your body. And if we don't have these, your reactions inside the body, everything kind of going on and working where we don't pay attention to, are going to happen too slowly to keep you alive, maybe non-existent. So that's why we get things like, inflammation and all these things happening in the body. Is the foods we're eating from these processed and genetically modified foods, they don't have them. They're gone. They're not. I know you had a soil expert on your show before talking about how how much our soil now lacks nutrition and nutrients that are needed to grow good food. So you might have a really great garden in your backyard and pick a great tomato, but that tomato is not necessarily going to be quality. It's not going to have all the natural occurring enzymes that it might need to keep your body healthy. So we really have to help our bodies out, and we should be kind of supplementing with these enzymes to help.
I know when you bring up tomato, I remember as we talked with the soil expert that you were talking about there, I remember when I was younger, a tomato being deep red, and there was just this really tomatoey taste to it. But now when you go to the store and you get a tomato and cut it, what you see is mostly a lot of meat, and it's white and kind of pasty looking, and it doesn't taste anywhere near I remember a tomato tasting. And I remember there was a time a few years back that a neighbor brought over some tomatoes from a garden that he went out, and it was kind of a community garden, I guess. And he brought us a watermelon and a tomato, and I thought, as we tried these, I hadn't tasted anything like that since I was a child. It's like, my goodness, boy, you really hit the spot there, didn't you?
The flavor, yes. It's so true. Even my own mom, I loved dinner time because we would always go out back, and if we had fresh-grown tomatoes and cucumbers, we'd just, cut them up, put them on our plate, and I just remember that, I don't know, it brought me back to summer. If I ever tasted it again, it just brought me back. And now, you're pretty much just adding tomatoes and other things. There's not a lot of flavor. It's mostly for color. There's not a lot of flavor to that you get in the grocery store anymore. So, and that's sad, and that's what it is. It all kind of goes back to this nutrition where there's not enough nutrients in our food that we're growing anymore to really do our bodies good. We're taxing our bodies.
Now, the strange thing is, anybody who sits through a day of television will discover that there sure are a lot of supplements that are being advertised out there, especially in 30-minute to even hour-long programs, telling you these are the supplements that will actually change your life. I mean, I think one of the most fun jokes years back was the shark cartilage. Well, let's go ahead and talk about, here we are now, we're in a society full of synthetic vitamins. Do they help?
I kind of laugh at this question. It's funny to me because, I get a lot of people even now that say, but, what about the FDA, the FDA? And it really kind of makes me laugh because, all these things happening with regards to our processed foods, and FDA's been around, honestly, as it's known by name since about the 1930s. But, before that, there were regulations. But, they started seeing all these changes with processing food and things happening. They say, you know what, America, and we need supplements. That's what we need to do. So, in comes all these vitamins. You see, you can't go to any store anymore without a complete aisle of vitamins, and it's kind of overwhelming to look at. Take this. This is better. This is all natural. And it's funny because, the FDA isn't even responsible for actually, I'll say approving those products. They do vitamin-specific I guess they're authorized to kind of approve the ingredients, I would say, for dietary supplements. But overall, they're not actually authorized to review them or even test them for safety and effectiveness. That really kind of lies on the manufacturers. But, if there's a problem with something or people get sick or have reactions, then the FDA can come in and kind of take it off the market. But basically, they approve the ingredients. And so they have what they have, your recommended daily intake. And that, sadly, has not really ever changed over time. So as our food is changing and the processes of that, the recommended daily intakes are still pretty much staying the same. They're not changing to make up for what we're lacking in our foods. But if you start reading labels, it's pretty interesting. The majority of our over-the-counter multivitamins, supplements, and even the products you go to, say, GNC, are not FDA approved. And 95% of those supplements are actually synthetic. They fall in a synthetic category. So our vitamin C, as you talked about, or corn syrup, that's what that is. When you look at a label and read it and it says ascorbic acid, that is corn syrup. And our bodies naturally don't recognize it. They don't like it. It's foreign to our bodies. If you were to eat an orange, our bodies are like, oh, yay, vitamin C. We can, process it, digest it, and take all the nutrients from that orange and put it in our body where it needs to go. But these supplements, they don't. Our bodies kind of acts as a foreign, like an enemy. Our bodies don't want to process it. They don't want to digest it. And quite honestly, most of the quality of the ingredients that are on those lists are in the cheapest or least absorbable form. They're chemically created. So most people looking at a label, you kind of look, I find myself doing that myself. I look at it and I'm like, this is all foreign to me. I don't know what all these big words mean. They're scientific words, and you'd almost need a chemistry degree just to accurately read it. But just know that most of the ingredients are a compound or a chemical cocktail, rather, watered down versions of what the natural form or plant form of a lot of these things would be. So the concentrations of these are so low. That's why you'll see milligrams. Anything measured in milligrams is bad, I say. Milligrams are bad. But they don't actually have any real impact on our body. So that's why I kind of laugh off the FDA stuff when people go back to that, because it really is, it's just crazy. There's so many isolates. They take an isolated part of a plant or something that's natural and good for our body, and then they just, chemically create, like I said, this cocktail or something, and they put it on a shelf and they call it good, and it's really not. It's lacking all the important minerals that we need, but also they put so much other stuff in it that it's really becoming toxic and dangerous. We're having mineral deficiencies in our body, and now you've got things like leaky gut we talk about. That's a big thing that's come up in the last, I'd say, 15 years, is that whole gut-brain connection and what's going on, and that's what it is.
What is leaky gut exactly? What's going on there?
Well, so leaky gut, basically what's happening in our body is when you're eating any type of food, your body naturally is going to recognize that food. If you're eating raw foods are really the best food for you. And I know we talk about soil depletion of nutrients, but really anything raw you can eat is going to be the best for your body, because your body's going to recognize that food. It's not foreign. It's something that's good. And they're going to do everything inside, digest it, take the nutrients where they need to go. What's happening is all these foods are processed, these chemicals are added, these hormones, antibiotics, you name it. They're all added to these foods we eat on a daily basis. And your body kind of says, hey, wait a minute. I don't know what this is. I kind of recognize this a little bit. I'll break it down and do with it what I will, but this I don't know, so I'm not even going to waste my time on it. And they kind of just, your enzymes within your body that you already have, they actually come from your pancreas when you eat food. They just are like, I'm not going to bother with this. I don't know what it is. So what happens is all these things are building up in your body. It's very toxic. And, proteins and all these things are created. They call it like a biofilm, or they make your blood in your stomach, intestinal tracts kind of dirty, basically. And they just go into your intestines and they stay there. But then all this inflammation comes. You've got, all this debris kind of happening all over your body, compromising your immune system and everything else going on in your body. And that's where you get this leaky gut. They're like, well, I'm starting to have inflammation here. Maybe I have pain. And really it's all coming from these unprocessed foods. Your enzymes in your body don't want to deal with it. They're already taxed. You're eating so much processed and bad foods that it doesn't want to take its time to do it. And your body is so tired from fighting it all. It really is just going to leave it there. So that's why you even hear people going in for surgery, opening them up, and they still have, food or undigested even vitamins in their body. It's really your enzymes. They don't want to do the work. It's too much. It's too much work for them. So you need to help your body out. You need to eat raw foods. Raw foods are the best foods for you. That's why we always say life gives you life. If you eat something living that's a plant, even your own, protein that, is fresh and good, not modified, your body is not going to have to use the enzymes that you have, and most of us don't have a lot. After the age of 20, we decrease our enzyme production by about 1%. But basically, you're eating raw and living, and they don't need to borrow that from your body. Your pancreas doesn't need to supply it. But anytime we're eating our processed foods, and anything that's, canned, heated is another big thing. Anytime we're heating foods, you're already killing the enzymes that are naturally occurring in it. So rather than taking that from your body, it's better to eat as much plant, living, good, soil-grown food that we can to help our body out and give enzymes to our body rather than take them away.
And even more strange is we're noticing that our pets are now somehow getting the same kind of diseases we are.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, even though there's a lot of these natural health food products out there for animals, it's still the same thing. You know, to store these things, you have to either freeze dry them, I'm guessing, or you have to cook them up to seal them in a can. And I know, like, for our dog, I said, this is what all you need to do. You go to the end of the meat area there where they reduce the prices so they can get the meat sold off the shelf, and you buy that. And you just lightly cook it on the outside, just enough to kind of maybe kill whatever, but mostly it's rare to raw. And, a little bit of rice or sweet potato, whatever. And I know we've taken our dog to the vet a few times, and they always ask us, what do you do? What do you mean? Well, your dog seems so healthy. And he is. And I mean, literally, this is something I used to joke with my wife when I would make his food until I showed her, this is what I do, and it's real easy to do and very inexpensive. But I would go in with the dog bowl, and I'd actually spoon some out and eat it right in front of her and say, here, you want to try some of this? But it was literally the same thing we would put on our plate, literally. But, there it is that, as you're saying, it's something that's lightly cooked or, pretty close to rare raw.
Right.
And that's very important, especially for, your gut, especially you're talking about the gut bacteria and how that really needs to be built, because basically, as I understand, gut is now, they're beginning to see that it's basically our second brain, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, and that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier. So only in the last 15 to 20 years have they made this connection where, we're really, like I said, we're a sick generation. People are always at the hospital and doctor for something, and they're like, why is this? And what they're finding is that this whole gut-brain connection. So they're like, okay, we have an uprise in, all of these diseases. Even autism, I think, is up by 600%.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy out there. And, I know they try to blame it on, I think it's immunizations, which maybe that's possible. Who knows? But we could certainly attribute it to gut health. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Diets have changed. But, heart disease and that C word we don't like, the cancer, have more than doubled, and this is just in 20 years. This is just in half my lifetime, and that's not very long. So diabetes. I myself, part of the reason I took control of my health is because last summer I was diagnosed as type 2 diabetic, and I was like, well, how can that be? I didn't think too terrible, and I knew it kind of ran in my family. But I was like, I'm not crazy on sugar. I don't eat a whole lot of sweets. I had my coffee every day, but really, going back, it's so simple. It really is attributed to my diet. And I was eating quick, not fast food every day, but we weren't growing our own food and eating a lot of vegetables. What we were eating was quick and for our kids and anything we could put on the table and go back to work. And it absolutely contributed. So this gut health connection, they're saying, is you're exactly right. It is our second brain. So we need that good balance of the germs, or I call it the healthy gut flora. You'll hear them talk about inside of our stomach. And, oftentimes you'll hear maybe naturopath or doctors say you need to have more probiotics or prebiotics, in your diet. Add that. And those are living enzymes is basically what that comes down to. So your gut and the gut flora, all that bacteria and stuff, they're good germs. We need good and bad, that good balance. But it's kind of behaving like this fun little ecosystem in our bodies that's keeping all the germs and everything else at bay. But research is showing that, we're not even able to digest these foods that we're putting in our body anymore. This overall, well-being and homeostasis in our body, it's going so out of whack from all these different foods that all of these things inside of our gut are now linked to these other immune deficiencies that we're seeing. And 80% of our entire immune system is in our stomach wall. That's where everything goes. So if we're not good to our stomachs, imagine what else. No wonder our bodies aren't happy anymore, and we're seeing this uptick in all these other disease and mental health and inflammation. And we kind of just need to peel back and kind of start from basics. Go, wait a minute. Okay, yes, I have inflammation in my body, or maybe I have, leaky gut, as they call it, but why? And it comes back to these enzymes. We have to introduce these enzymes to our body to keep our bodies healthy.
So I'm wondering, Angela, if we're not getting a lot of this in our food, and I'm sure, obviously one of the things I would think that people could do is try to find organic, especially if you can buy local from sustainable farms. A lot of times there's the big debate among people about whether or not we should be getting our protein from animals. Why don't we talk about that for a little bit?
Well, so we definitely need protein. Like I said, I took my health back by introducing plants and plant-based nutrition. But it's not just that. People need protein. Our bodies were designed to need protein. So I kind of want to touch base on, we talk about enzymes or digestive enzymes, but we also need proteolytic enzymes. So, I like protein. I'm a diabetic type 2, like I said, so I tend to eat more proteins, less carbs. And really what that can do is when you're eating all these proteins and stuff in your body, yes, it's good for you, but anytime it's undigested or, these enzymes in our body aren't naturally doing what they're supposed to because we treat our bodies terrible, it's causing that inflammation. You've got arthritis, and you've got all this debris kind of floating around in your blood. It's compromising your intestinal tracts, causing high blood pressure. Your heart's trying to work so much harder at pushing this blood through because your blood is dirty. These, proteins have actually leaked out through your intestines through your leaky gut syndrome. So we need to not only introduce raw foods with natural living enzymes, but we should be paying attention to proteolytic enzymes. And proteolytic, what I mean by that is it's a protein splitting enzyme. So we need to pay attention to that because, like I said, when you're eating things that are rich in protein or things that our body doesn't recognize and it dirties our blood, our white blood cells, everything about our body and what's going on in our body, they don't want to bother with it. They're tired. Our bodies are taxed. We're already fighting off and trying to overprocess what we've put in our body that's overprocessed, and we're tired. Our immune systems are breaking down. So we need to introduce these proteolytic enzymes into our body, and what those do is they act a little bit differently than regular digestive enzymes. They're going to split these proteins, or rather that biofilm and dirty blood we talked about. Actually, dental plaque is also considered, like a biofilm or a sign that your body's not doing what it's supposed to. If you have a big buildup of plaque, chances are you're already enzyme deficient. So we need to introduce these proteolytic enzymes into our body to help break down those proteins.
Well, if we can't get a lot of this in our diet, what do you suggest people can consider doing?
Honestly, the best thing, you can definitely supplement. So, our company, like I said, is definitely a plant-based company. We talk about the education of going back to basics, introducing plant nutrition. And really what it comes down to is even if you're not buying from our company, read your labels. You've got to look at the supplements. There's hundreds of thousands online. If you Google a supplement, you can find them, but you really need to look for ones that are natural living enzymes. So reading the labels, as I said, you have to be kind of a scientist to read them anyways, but do your best to break it down. And if you don't recognize most of what's in those ingredients and what you're reading, chances are it's synthetic, it's fake. You should be reading labels that, have things like acerola cherries for vitamin C. If it says ascorbic acid, steer away. It's fake. It's corn syrup. Your body doesn't like it. Ashwagandha, things like any type of plant you can recognize the name of, look it up, or curcuminoids, cumin, turmeric, those kind of things. If those aren't in your ingredients, and the majority of your ingredients, if not all of them, then just steer away. But you should definitely be introducing those things into your body to help. You have to supplement. What you're going to get from any food you're purchasing and putting in your body, especially after the age of 27, is not sufficient. Your body cannot handle it.
So would there be, it sounds to me like you have this wonderful company that can give, supplementation. What kind of enzymes do you have available that you would recommend to people? Let's say that listening today, people say, well, I want to get started on the right track. How do I start moving in this direction besides just going out and beginning to move more into the produce section, for instance?
Right. Well, definitely that's your first step. Stick to, the outside of the grocery store. Try not to shop on the inside. Stick to your plants, the produce section for sure. But also, just being good to your body. If you want to find a supplement, our company, of course, I love it and I promote it because I believe in it. It's exactly that. It's plant-based. Everything is designed around adding plants back into your body and living enzymes without the use of synthetic products and fillers and everything else that are typically on the over-the-counter things. And we have one, a digestive enzyme. It is called Life, and it is exactly that. Life gives you life. It's living enzymes. It's all plant. You take that with your food, and it helps break down everything that you eat in your stomach, so you're not having to pull those enzymes from your pancreas. You're taking it with your food, and you're just helping your digestion. You're not taking anything from the body. Life gives you life. But also, we have a balance, which is basically just your vitamins, big in vitamin B. It's a mixture of different things. And even those acerola cherries, we talked about vitamin C. Everything's a natural vitamin within it. Kind of fill in the blanks of what we're, not doing or picking. If we're picking the wrong foods and not vitamins for our body, it's going to kind of fill in those blanks. And then we also have the Restore, which is that proteolytic, which I talked about. And what a lot of people don't understand is everything that happens in our body when it comes to, disease, your Lyme disease, the plaque we talked about, or even bacteria and viruses. We've got a terrible virus going around right now, keeping us all at home, kind of going a little stir crazy. And I don't want to say these things, cure that by any means, but if you start looking at the way viruses and bacteria act, they basically get inside our body, staph infections, STDs, even things like HPV, meningitis, all these things. We get these bacteria and viruses, and they all want to host. And we're all great hosts because we're terrible at the way that we eat and treat our bodies, right? So these viruses and bacteria, they want to stay in our bodies as long as possible. So they kind of form these walls or barriers. They don't want our white blood cells to fight them. They want to stick around, and they're called spirochetes. So they're these little, walls and spiky things on the outside of these that keep our white blood cells from fighting these diseases for us. And even, others have, I just forget what viruses would have them at the top of my brain, but they even have lipid layer or fat walls that build around it. And it's basically just the virus saying, hey, I'm going to stay in your body. I don't want to go anywhere. So these proteolytic enzymes, these are so important, these protein-splitting ones. These basically are detoxifying your body. They come in, believe it or not, they can break down these walls that these viruses and bacteria have, and they can take away that outside wall so that our white blood cells in our body can naturally do what it's supposed to do, and we don't have to tax our body anymore to fight it off. So we do have, we call it Restore. It is a proteolytic enzyme. It is one of my best friends. I take it every single day. And when taken with food, it's going to, help, of course, break down what food and protein specifically you have in your stomach. But if you take it on an empty stomach, it's going to go out throughout your body, and it's going to seek out these old, rogue proteins, all this biofilm and crap that you've got in your blood.
The stuff that's just kind of laying in there like a sewage drain, in other words. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could have been there for years, old injuries, mucus, anything. It's going to go out, and it's going to they're these little warriors, right? And they go out, and they get rid of it. Helps your immune system. And that is a win. So, yes, those are definitely things you should introduce. Like I said, we have, great products, plant-based, 100% on board. These have changed my health so much over the last 18 months. I used to be a frequent in and out of ERs, and I think my mother was probably more shocked to get a call saying that I was fine instead of, in a hospital somewhere for something. But these have really changed, the game for me. But even if you're not buying these, I say, I don't want to push our products and it to be about that. But even if you're not buying ours, just be educated enough to look at the labels and read what you're putting into your body and be conscious of what you're doing to help your body win. Because if you don't start now, you're going to pay in so many big ways later, and you have to take control of your health. We need to start doing this for our body.
So it sounds to me, someone listening today, the one thing you were talking about was restore.
Yes.
Would be a great thing for anyone out there to start off with if you really want to clean and really, get that gut area there back to being healthy. That would be a great step. Get all that cleaned out, and then
Absolutely.
begin to move more in an organic direction if you can. I know I will say this. I don't know if you know this, but on Netflix there is a wonderful documentary called Game Changers.
Oh, I did not know that. No.
And what this is, it's a documentary about top athletes in different fields. For instance, professional football. One of them is now the world record holder, strongest man in the world by walking 1,200 plus pounds, 33 feet. I mean, think about that. And one of them is a 39-year-old Olympian bicyclist, speed bicyclist. And what all these people have in common is they're all on the vegan diet. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this documentary. He says, I was the bodybuilder world champion, and we just believed you ate meat. But he began to see, well, maybe we were kind of wrong about this a little bit. He says, now, I'm not saying don't eat meat. In fact, he has a funny expletive. He says, if you go to somebody and say, you need to stop eating meat and become, vegan or vegetarian, they're just going to say, F you.
Right.
But he says, but what if you just start, and he's very reasonable about this, as you should be when it comes to diet changes. Well, what if you tried it once a week?
Right.
Start there and just see how you feel. That's all you got to do. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, here were these top athletes that were breaking records, and they're all on vegan diets. In fact, most of the Arizona Cardinals, I believe their championship-winning team, the defensive side, all became vegan because one of the team members, his wife was a professional chef, and she started sending these vegan meals, with him to go practice. And all of a sudden the team, they're like, boy, that looks pretty good. They were saying, boy, this also tastes pretty good too. And so they started going to his house, and she was cooking vegan for him, But I say that if you're going to move this direction, the first thing you can also do too, and why I wanted to really bring this up, restore sounded like one of those supplements, enzyme supplements. Let's talk about that again, because that really caught my ear and eye as well, that I think would be valuable for people who are listening today.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that with the, the vegan, because I would be one of those people. I'm like, really? No, you couldn't pay me enough to be vegan. I do like my meat, but I do.
But you'd be surprised how good a lot of that food actually is. It's mind-blowing because my wife started doing that 3 or 4 days a week. And, I'm all for it. I'm pretty easy that way because of all the years of doing radio and talking about health and all that. And I was astonished because it also put variety back into our diet.
Exactly. So, a little bit of flavor, right? You don't have these easy, the same thing twice. You're not eating, spaghetti on Monday and then spaghetti on Friday because you're running out of ideas. It really is. There's so many resources out there for it. But I think a lot of the term, the meatless Monday, maybe you've had that in your house where they're like, okay, take the meat out of it. We're just doing plant-based. And that's all it is. It's so easy. So when you don't have, this restore, I would say, or when you're not eating the protein, even if you're not eating it, the restore is going to benefit because, like I said, it's going in your system and it's going to start seeking out old things, that old slime. You don't really get rid of it in your body. It just shows up a different way. And your body is so smart when they're like, hey, wait a minute, what is this crap in our blood? We have to keep it away from the heart. So it just pushes all this slime and just crap, protein, I'll call it, a lot of rogue proteins out of your body, and it just sends it to all your extremities. And that's where you get your achy joints and your arthritis. You might even have, say, kidney stones. A lot of these things are just from these rogue proteins. So this proteolytic enzyme, it is a blend. It is comprised of, it has the proteolytic, the S, or splitting protein, they call it S protein. But it also has these curcuminoids, the turmeric, and natural inflammation fighters in it as well. So it is a blend. And it kind of just goes out in your body and just cleans it out and says, all right, we're going to take care of all this crap. Let's clean it up. And, you might notice your blood pressure is so much better. Maybe you're not in a dangerous range anymore because your blood is able to go through your body and deliver the nutrients that it was meant to deliver. So these, I would never say don't eat protein because our bodies are designed to need it, but certainly the vegan diet and the vegetables, so eating the raw living things is going to benefit your body in so many important ways.
Absolutely. Now, let's go ahead and talk about, we were talking about digestive health. Obviously, and that particular supplement there would be, Restore would be something that people could get started with. Let's move on to the next thing. I know we've been talking about leaky gut, and you can see probably why we have stuff like that or ulcerative colitis, because all this stuff just kind of hanging out there we never seem to get rid of. It just never goes away, it seems. And this is one way you can start doing that. And I think just alone you'll start realizing, now my body's beginning to absorb nutrients. I'm starting to feel that fogginess in my head go away, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
I know there was a time when I had digestive pain that was sometimes so bad it was even hard to walk. I mean, it was just bad. And I remember coming across something, and somebody suggested, well, why don't you get watermelon and actually peel the green part of the rind away but use all of it other than that? And go ahead and just throw it in a Vitamix with some water and blend it up and have some watermelon juice. And I was amazed, but that actually just took that away.
It works.
Yeah. It was just amazing, and they were saying the rind of the watermelon is actually what you want the most. Just kind of get the green part of it out of there, but other than that, use it all. And I was just astonished at how within hours I was like, to be pain-free. Your mind is so stuck on, God, I'm feeling the pressure down, here it comes, that sort of a thing, that it just drives you nuts. But let's go ahead and talk about, because there was something else I noticed here in my notes about collagen. What is that?
Oh, collagen. So collagen, we naturally produce collagen. Our own bodies, we produce it. Most commonly, people refer to it and talk about our aging. Everybody's like, "Oh, I need collagen. I've got wrinkles," and that's great. But our bodies actually produce it. We've got it in our bones, and we have, this type 1 collagen is the most efficient in our body. It's the most common. So we actually lose about 1% of it each year after the age of 20. So, and that could be a completely different lesson. It could be a whole other radio show. But we lose that collagen, our ability to produce it. And so, people now think, well, I can just take a collagen and I can, it's mixed with this face cream. I can put it on my face and be better. And it might help a little, but honestly, those particles are so thick in those creams anyways that you're not really absorbing enough to make a big difference. So I take a collagen every day. Our company, again, goes back, back to basics. And we have one, it's a type 1 hydrolyzed collagen. It's a liquid form. I will tell you, it's flavored and it still tastes kind of crappy. I don't love taking it every day. I usually make a face when I take it, even though it's flavored. But it's good for my body, and it's good for, those walls we talked about in your stomach and just all over your body. Your body needs collagen. You can't just magically, produce collagen. You have to activate it in your body or on your skin. That's why, when you talk cosmetic stuff, people go in there and they get microneedling. And that's to really kind of get your body to be like, hey, I need to produce some collagen and make up for these little holes you just put in my face. I guess I'll repair myself. And that activates that. But also, collagen is so vital to your health, overall well-being and everything in your body. You really should be supplementing with that. And, same with the enzymes and other supplements. Some are better than others. And it goes back to reading that label and making sure the majority of the ingredients aren't synthetic. They're not chemically created in a lab, that they are, coming from something that's healthy and plant-derived.
Wow, this is so amazing to think about a couple of things people can actually begin with to really turn things around now. Since you've been obviously talking with people, suggesting, try these things, what kind of changes have you seen in people that you've had direct relationships with when it comes to using things like what we were talking about earlier, Restore, things like that?
Mm-hmm. So many good things. So, personally, my own testimony and that of my family and husband, like I said, we're veterans. We've, they're big on pushing pills. Anything that they can give you over the counter to shut you up and keep you from coming in, they give you. And what we've been able to find is just by, for one, adding enzymes. I know when I was just diagnosed last year, type 2 diabetic, the very first thing that came out of my doctor's mouth was, we need to put you on metformin. And I don't know if you read the the news lately and stuff, but metformin and, all these drugs that are typical, Zantac, all these things, being linked to
yeah,
cancer.
there's a law group down here. It's a couple of brothers now, and they're throwing that up there. Well, if you've got any of these things and you were taking Zantac, and boy, we're infested with lawyers down here in the Southwest, and I mean, they're just going after everything now.
Oh, they're like vultures down there, but it's true. And
not that that's a bad thing. It's like, you pharmaceutical companies might want to think about producing something that don't cause all these problems for the one problem you say that it takes care of.
Exactly. And they're all FDA approved. So that's why
it's pretty amazing, too, when you think of the FDA and you realize that sometimes the chairman of the board or whatever the case is when it comes to who makes the big brain decisions were usually former people of a pharmaceutical company. Well, okay, now we see what's going on there, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly. They're probably all doctors just hoping to get them in their clinics. But I digress. There are good doctors out there. I hate to say that. But, again, they're FDA approved. But, the first thing they said was metformin. We have to get you on metformin. And all I could think was, another medication. I've got my own testimonial after taking all these products. We have a web page that's just for people that have life-changing testimonials of products. And I did put my own on there. And, she said, if we'll play it your way. I told her no medications. I absolutely don't want to take not one more medication because we already had a pharmacy at our house. And she said, okay, we'll kind of play it your way, but if your numbers don't go back, I'm putting you on this metformin. There's kind of no ifs, ands, or buts. And I said, okay, all right. So I started taking my enzymes. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to basics. Here I work for this amazing company with amazing leaders, and here they educate about plant nutrients. I said, I'm going to do it. So I started taking the Life and the Restore, and after my first 3 months, my numbers went from near 7 down to 6, and then 3 months after that, I was down to 5.6. So I was pre-diabetic numbers, even though I was just diagnosed 6 months before. And it was all from the introduction of these enzymes. So Life helped do that. It was helping me control my blood sugars. I never had to take insulin or anything or any medication, luckily. But, these people that maybe are on insulin, my uncle was, I think his I forget how many times a day he took insulin, and I hate to ruin this because he'll probably listen at some point. But he, his numbers were near 9. And now he's been able to cut back less than half the amount of insulin he was having to take just by introducing, these living enzymes, this Life. But also with Restore, I've got service-connected issues. I've had 2 hip surgeries and a full hip reconstruction. I've got a back surgery pending, hip surgeries pending. I've got, so many things, labral tears in my shoulders, all from being in the Army. And by taking the Restore, I was realizing that if I took that at night, right before bed, I wasn't having those aches and pains I normally would, where I have to flip-flop around all night because I can't stay in one position. I noticed I was up in the morning and I didn't necessarily feel energetic, but I felt like I wanted to get up. I wanted to start my day. Same with my husband. He's introducing these things, and he's able to get off, medications that he's been taking for ADHD and PTSD, different things. He's able to cut back so many of those medications. And, always, I always say, talk to your doctors. I would never say stop taking your medications, but he was able to get off of those and to significantly cut back others. And it's so amazing to me just to see the transformation. And like I said, we've got a web page of, I think near 60,000 testimonials of people's lives we've been able to touch by educating about these products and letting them take these products and really change their quality of life without having to drastically change their quality of life per se and change a lot of what they do. And, old habits are hard to break. I will fully admit that. I'm not one that can stick to, a diet for very long when it comes to dieting, but by making simple changes and more educated decisions about what we're putting in our body and helping our body really fight what it can naturally do. And our bodies are just so resistant or resilient rather. It's just amazing by adding some of these simple products, the way your life can change. So that's kind of my take on it. I've got so many stories I could tell people about. I post a lot on my Facebook and our pages. And then, like I said, we have it's called Health Wealth Community. That is an exclusive community where we've got just testimonials, about what these products have done, how they've changed lives. And I'm all about it. If there's anybody out there listening that, maybe just has an issue that, they're afraid to talk about or nothing's helped or their doctor, for whatever reason, can't peel back that onion and figure out what's going on, I would love to help them. I would love to give them, some of our products to try for even, 30, 60 days and just say, take this, see what happens, see if it changes, and see how their lives can be affected and in a positive way, really.
Absolutely, and it's unique when you talk about how your husband's particular experience was that he was beginning to slowly get off medications, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
How often, when it comes to people who move just in the direction of vegan. And again, I think sometimes people are turned off by the vegetarian vegan thing because you get these people that seem to be beating it over their heads, hippie types. Right. And just like the documentary I was suggesting, there was actually another one I watched where these people actually, with kind of a range of different health conditions, one guy was in really bad shape. He had a duffel bag full of medications that he was taking out of England, and they sent them to this place for 30 days where the only thing they would do is they would have juice, where they would do these, juices. And this guy barely could walk, and by the end of this thing, he was really getting to a point that he was jogging. And you would look at these people, and sometimes, and you'd say, you could just physically see the difference in them, and this is just 30 days of juicing.
That's amazing.
And it really was, and the fact that this guy was reducing his duffel bag down to next to nothing. And to me, I say to the listeners out there, look, if you're taking medications, and if you'd like to maybe see the possibility that you could reduce it by 1 or maybe 2, and that you begin to feel better, isn't that worth something to you? Yeah.
It's worth everything. Yeah, I mean, that really is kind of the mission. And like I said, it goes back to education. We don't know what we don't know. I didn't know I was doing anything terrible to my body. I grew up watching everybody else was doing it, and I was doing it. I didn't notice the difference. And then someone gets sick, and you go, oh, well, that sucks. It must run in your genes. And there's a lot of genetic things we can't change about, our history, our family history, but certainly learning about this and plant-based and veggies and, everything that's good for our body. It's just been so amazing that's become kind of our mission. We want to touch 1 billion lives, more if we can, just educating. And even if you're not taking our products, just be educated, make good decisions about what you're putting in your body, put those raw, living, good foods in your body. And then, like I said, I know our farmers, the poor farmers, they're taxed and our soil is a little bit deficient. So just supplement with good things. Just make good choices. And
restore yourself, in other words.
Exactly. Give your life and definitely restore those bodies. I promise we have something for everybody. There's products out there that can just really significantly change lives, and I'm so willing to have conversations about it. I'll even do a presentation in your home. I'll do a Zoom presentation, if you want. You can't invite your friends over now. Maybe not now. You can have them in your living room. But everyone has a computer. We can definitely teach about it and just show you a way. If you're feeling helpless, there's so many people that only know medications. I feel sick, go to the doctor, but be proactive in your health. Do these things so that you don't have to go to the doctor.
And again, going back to doctors, it's not entirely their fault because they're shackled under a system that's guided or led or, by insurance companies. And
exactly.
Then it's really tough because there are a lot of doctors out there that say, if I could just do what I know I should be doing, I would love to be doing that, but because I work in this hospital, 90% of their income comes from an insurance company. You're shackled by the rules and regulations by insurance companies that dictate how you're supposed to be treated. If you sway outside of that, you could be looking at a liability lawsuit, and doctors pay a bunch of money to make sure that if they, and now you've got, of course, vulture lawyers, as we were talking about, that are out there finding ways to sue, and it's like, what is a doctor to do?
Exactly.
Wow, it's pretty amazing. Like you said, getting educated, boy, you'll go down a rabbit hole. It's pretty amazing when you discover the truth about a lot of things. For instance, farmers and big-time agriculture and what big companies, how they shackle farmers into doing what they do. And that's an alarming story. I mean, there's a lot of it out there, but the beauty, as I keep saying, is once you know, now you realize the power you have to vote with your wallet. And when you realize that, again, get a financial education. I believe that who you're with even talks about that as well. I mean, here's all these things we didn't have before. We didn't grow up in schools that taught us this is how you eat. This is a way to suggest eat, and this is why. This is the way you should think about when you earn $1, what to do with it. But because of technology and because of especially this coronavirus, I personally, this was my first attitude about when this thing came on, is I don't feel like this thing is so bad. A, and B, I think we're facing probably the greatest opportunity for personal change and growth at this moment because we're all staying home. Now you've got the time to do these things you said you didn't have time to do before. And it's about time you take personal responsibility for your life and say, what do I do once those doors are allowed to be open? Do I go back to my same routine and go, thank God we got by that, or do I do something different? Now's the time.
Exactly. Yeah, think about it. Make good choices, and take that time with your family. Take that time to think about it. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. Because I have an immune system that's already compromised. I'm a little bit fearful of it, and so I just don't want to risk it. I don't want to be that mom, that's either diagnosed and carted off to the hospital by myself, or even my kids. You can't go with your kids if they get sick with this virus. So I tend to be a little more cautious, but I definitely within these four walls just think, exactly that. There was something I had posted as well. It was talking about, in all the hustle and bustle of the world that was happening before, as your mind is at home and you're with your families, think about what parts of that hustle and bustle you really want to go back to. Really take this time to reevaluate what's important. And definitely one of those most important on top of your list should be health. And financially, look at all these people, really in dire straits because of what this virus has done with them just in a matter of, a week or two. Now we're, here at 6, 7, 8 weeks, probably even longer. But, man, how sad is it that really none of us, or many of us don't have something to go back to or fall back on financially. It's really quite tragic. So I look forward to the tomorrow when we wake up and everyone's looking at the more important things and we're back to our new normal, I guess it will be. But, hopefully people take steps to really consider their health and financial situation.
Well, one step, if they decide from this point they want to contact or get in touch with you, how can they go about doing that?
Oh, they can find me. They can call me. So I do have, my information on your guys' Beyond 50 radio page, but, just give me a call if you want to call me. My phone number is on there. You can find me if you look up my website. It's called This Is Trenant. And then my name is Angela DeBill. You can find me on there. Or just give me a call. I'd love to talk with you. My email address is on your page.
And you said that you're on Facebook as well?
I am on Facebook.
And how would they find you on Facebook?
Just Angela DeBill. You can look me up. Last name is D-E-B as in Bravo, I-L-L. There shouldn't be many of me out there. You can find me. My picture is the same one as on your guys' page. But, yeah, find me. I would love to invite people. I was a skeptic, guys. If you're skeptical, I totally get it. I didn't know what I didn't know. I would love to just talk to you and educate you about what I've learned from the experts of the industry and our medical board and all these amazing leaders. And, we have that page, like I said, the Health Wealth Community. It is exclusive. You have to be invited. You can't just find it and join it. But I'd love to invite you. Check it out yourself, all the testimonials. Like I said, I think it's 58,000 testimonials and growing. Grows every day just by people taking the products and talking about ways that it's changed their life. And, you can search keywords on there, anything from, cancer to other things and how it's helped their bodies. So, again, like I said, I don't make claims. These aren't cures. These aren't something.
No, we get it. What we're talking about is just helping the body get back to where it is so it can do what it actually does. And, you captured my attention with Restore. I thought, hey, there's a good idea because I'm doing a lot of the other things already. But what if some of that stuff was just hanging out down there? Anybody's ever seen the movie Osmosis Jones with Bill Murray?
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you what. Boy, you look at that and you realize, oh boy, he could certainly use some of that Restore. I'll tell you what. But anyway, yeah.
And they're not even, it's just like when they talk about this virus stuff, they're asymptomatic. Maybe you don't have any of these things happening in your body yet, or maybe you just have something as simple as a little inflammation here or there, a little joint pain. That's going to get worse. But it's from years of debris in your body. It doesn't happen the second we eat a steak, these proteins going out in your body. It collects.
True. It's amazing how much the body can hold on to something, too, before you start to feel its effects.
Exactly.
It takes a long time, but when you start feeling the ache or the pain, it's been going on for a while and you just weren't aware of it yet. It's pretty astonishing, but it can all be changed. It can be reversed just by doing the right things.
Yep, just help your body. Yeah.
Well, Angela, it's been a real pleasure to have you here on the Beyond 50 radio program. And again, for our listeners, you can find a lot of our information on our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number. And you can also find Angela on Facebook. Last name, DeBille, D-E-B-I-L-L-E, was it?
Just I-L-L, yeah. No.
I-L-L, okay. D-E-B, as in Bravo, because she was in the Army. Delta, Echo, Bravo, that sort of thing. DeBille, Angela DeBille at Facebook. Very good. Anything you'd like to leave our listeners with here today?
Just thanks so much for listening and tuning in. I know, went a little bit long today, but it's such good information. And if I can leave you with anything, like I said, just if anything, I'll just love to educate you about it. I'm not a product pusher. I just know how it's changed my life, and I'd love to touch theirs. So, questions, anything they want to do, get in touch with me for sure. I'd love to help.
And on behalf of us here, folks, get out there and restore yourself. I think Angela can help you do that. Angela, thanks for being on the program today. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Daniel. My pleasure. Thank you.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can also restore your peace of mind by visiting us at our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We do encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter and keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 as well as our upcoming shows. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.